It's about history, policy, and impact. A new perspective on current affairs, bringing experience, insight, civility, and scholarship to the urgent issues of today. It's about our past, present, and future. Your host, Pulitzer Prize-winning author and journalist, Douglas Blackmon. From the University of Virginia's Miller Center, this is American Forum.
Welcome back to American Forum. I'm Doug Blackmon. In the 15 years since the terror attacks on September 11, 2001, Americans have been confronted with continuous but constantly evolving questions about the most effective ways to keep the nation safe, how to identify our enemies, what to do about them, what limits should we impose on our soldiers, our intelligence agencies, and ourselves as citizens. How should we project our image and values across the globe while protecting vital interests and all Americans? Our guest in this episode has wrestled with those questions throughout this new era. From 1999 to 2009, Air Force General Michael V. Hayden served at the very top of America's most critical intelligence gathering organizations, as director of the National Security Agency, as a top White House advisor to the Bush administration, and finally as director of the Central Intelligence Agency. He's written a book about that remarkable period and the challenges he faced. The title is Playing to the Edge: American Intelligence in the Age of Terror. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Doug.
I always hate asking authors about the titles of their books because it's the most obvious question you can ever ask. But your title is Playing to the Edge, and there is this very interesting discussion about it throughout your time in these critical roles, that you were always trying to play to the edge of the limits, the boundaries. But from the time before 9/11 through most of that period, how did the edge move? Where was it before?
Sure. So first of all, with regard to the title, that's my wife's. She's the one who came up with that. She had read the manuscript, and Random House said, "Hey, you need a title here, guy," and mulled it over for about a day or two. And her, having read the manuscript, thought that best summarized what it was I was trying to say. I take full credit for the colon that comes after it. And then the fine print, American Intelligence in the Age of Terror.
And all other punctuation throughout the book.
Right.
All right, okay, we got that.
But the theme, as you point out, is that within our profession, when the circumstances demand it, you just don't do this haphazardly. You use the full authority that law and policy gives you. Now look, I call it the box we're allowed to operate in. We don't create the box. The box gets delivered to us by the American political process. But when we've gotten the box and the circumstances demand it, you use the entire playing field, so to speak. Now look, Doug, when we do that, I know it's going to end up sooner or later in one coast or another's newspaper, LA, New York, Washington, with some pretty harsh words, probably a tough congressional session or two. So there's an instinct, and we really have to do this. But if you play back from the edge, you might be protecting you, or more nobly, protecting your agency. But we're not protecting you and the American people. So quite unapologetically, I described that given that new box, we played to the edge. And let me just add one additional point. And near the end of the book, I talk about our getting a new president. I was President Obama's CIA chief for 3 weeks while we're waiting for Director Panetta to be confirmed. He changed the box. And the day he issued his executive order, 2 days after the inauguration, I sent a note to the entire CIA workforce saying, the president has given us precisely what we need. He has given us clear guidance. It is different guidance. It's a different box. But we will play as fully in this new box as we did in the previous one.
And in terms of how the edge moved from before 9/11, and most of the discussion we've heard about the pre-9/11 intelligence environment was essentially a criticism of the difficulties the different agencies had working together, that there was a protectiveness about the turf of these different...
Beyond turf, we Americans, as a methodology to preserve our security and liberty, have been pretty comfortable, given our geographic position, to put foreign over here, domestic over here, intel here, law enforcement there, put a wall, literally a wall between the two. And on September 11th, the 19 hijackers drove right through that gap I just described for you. So now the challenge becomes, how do you begin to blend foreign and domestic intelligence and law enforcement because the external circumstances now demanded that. And Doug, I freely admit, that was new art and science. We weren't quite making it up, but we were responding to circumstances we as a nation had never faced before.
So what was your immediate reaction? So 9/11 happens. Did you instantly say, wow, this totally changes the game, we're going to have to change the way we interrogate people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
No. In fact, I was at NSA at that time. So my whole field of view was with regard to electronic surveillance. So in the afternoon of 9/11, I turned the dials. All right, there are certain things clearly within the authority. I lay out the details in the book, but clearly within the authorities of the director to begin to up the ante in terms of how aggressive you want to be. And I confine my aggressiveness to communications entering or leaving the United States from Afghanistan, which was, of course, the location of the enemy headquarters, all right? And I immediately dialed it up, told George Tenet, the director of CIA, actually told the congressional committees, and said, I'll come down and explain it to you if you like. Senate said, no, you're good. The House said, yeah, come on down. George Tenet then went in and told President Bush and Vice President Cheney. He actually was outlining all the things he was doing at CIA. He said, oh yeah, one more thing. Mike Hayden, NSA, he's going to jail. All right. And Vice President Cheney said, well, we'll bail him out. All right. And George made an attempt to explain my tweaking the dials. At which point the president said, great, good man. Can he do anything more? I don't know. So George calls me and says, Mike, I talked to the president, vice president, they're happy with what you're doing. They want to know if you can do anything more. And my response was, George, not within my current authorities. There's a little pause, and he says, not exactly the question I asked you, Mike. Can you do more? And I said, I'll get back to you. And so I huddled up with both my operational and legal team and said, can we do more to detect the one kind of terrorist communication that should have been most important to us? Terrorist communications, one end of which was in the United States of America. And we came up with several recommendations, which became the terrorist surveillance program, domestic surveillance in the press, although we would never call it that. And we went back to the White House and said, well, if we had the authority, we could do this. And President Bush, operating under his Article II Commander-in-Chief authorities, gave us that authority. And I should add very quickly, Doug, over time, both the Bush and the Obama administrations created congressional legislative underpinnings for practically everything we did and a lot more.
There's a very interesting exchange you make you describe in the book between you and Leon Panetta, where essentially you say, no, it wasn't the White House pressuring intelligence to come to these conclusions. We just missed. You know, what did you mean by that?
Sure. So this is about the Iraq weapons of mass destruction national intelligence estimate that we pushed out the door in late 2002 because Congress wanted one. All right, it wasn't in the production schedule. So number one, it's a bit rushed. All right. Number two, it did conclude quite incorrectly a whole series of thoughts about the Iraqi weapons of mass destruction program, nuclear, chem, bio, UAVs and missiles rounds out the categories. We were wrong in almost all counts. Now, in extenuation, so was every other intelligence service on earth. All right. And when we actually questioned Iraqi generals, they actually thought Saddam had a program too, because he was creating the image for neighborhood reasons. He wanted the Iranians to fear him, that he did have this WMD program. But what I said to Leon was, Leon, I've looked at some of your writings while you've been out of government, and you're saying that we succumbed to White House pressure. The vice president kind of came up the GW Parkway, leaned on our analysts. Actually, by the way, that would never be effective. Our analysts are more ornery than tenured faculty, no offense. Okay? They would push back on that very strongly. It just didn't happen. And so I said to Leon, Leon, this was us. It was a clean swing and a miss. By the way, I was in the room. I was representing NSA when we were voting on the key judgments from the NIE. And Doug, every stitch of evidence I had was somewhere between not relevant to the question and confirmatory. Nothing I had was contradictory. I had a private conversation with Condi Rice. She was National Security Advisor at the time, but she and I go back to action officers on the Joint Staff in the 80s. And I said, Condi, I got a room full of evidence this guy's doing this. but every stitch of it is circumstantial. And as it turns out, the circumstantial evidence that I and others had was wrong.
And was one of the reasons that these erroneous conclusions were reached, was it because the analysts themselves were also feeling the same sort of pressure that you were, the president was, that surely there's got to be an explanation?
The administration hugged this conclusion like it was a teddy bear. I mean, it could not better fit what it was they wanted to say for the public argument for the war. But that wasn't the pressure on our analysts. I think what really affected our analysts' judgment was that they had lowballed the Iraqi nuclear program prior to Gulf War I. And they had certain estimates with regard to it. After the war, the UN inspectors go in, and it turns out the Iraqis were much further along. Doug, bureaucracies being bureaucracies. When you get it wrong to the left, you generally err to the right. And that's what happened.
But everybody agrees that the after the fighting plan was way off base. But
I
talk
sound
about
like
that.
a character from Homeland. All right, when I go plan.
So how did that happen?
There were some assumptions. All right, So I recount in the book. I mean, my workforce is as divided on the war against Iraq as the American population. But we're going to war, and we have certain responsibilities here. All right. So I talk to the workforce. I have town meetings, and I don't do one and done and just let people visit the website to see it. I did multiple town meetings because I wanted the human contact, and we had 4 phases to the war: prep the battle space, deploy, prep the battle space, force on force, after force on force. And I got the question in the town meeting: how long is this going to last? And I said, well, that part that the American public's going to call war. Phase 3, force on force, it's going to be measured in weeks, not months. And then I said, by the way, that 4th phase here, what you do after you win, that's not going to be measured in months either. All right, so I think we in the intelligence community knew this is going to be a very long-term problem creating some stability in Iraqi society. But even we lowballed the challenge. We did not appreciate, look, Iraq was a fairly secular, fairly educated society. If you're going to pick an Arab country that you think democracy might get some sort of traction, let me not go that far. Pluralism might get some traction. It would have been Iraq. We underappreciated how much Iraqi civil society had been destroyed by the Hussein regime.
Do you ascribe to the view that I've heard a number of people say at times of that, yes, there were a lot of mistakes, yes, a lot of things went wrong, but the world is still better with Saddam Hussein?
I have trouble putting bets down on alternative futures. I just don't know. Let me give you an entirely speculative question back at you. Do you get the Arab awakening without the war in Iraq?
I'll give you a question back. Is the Arab awakening a good thing or not?
And I talk about this a bit in the book. It's a troubling thing, but maybe a necessary thing. One of my last trips as director, I was in Egypt, and my counterpart, Omar Suleiman, a great counterpart, frankly, for what we needed the counterpart to do, but also the guy who kept Hosni Mubarak in power for 30 years, running the secret intelligence service. Omar says the president wants to talk to you. Okay. So I stay an extra day in Cairo, go out to Heliopolis on a bright Saturday morning, and I sit there with the president of Egypt, who proceeds to yell at me for 75 minutes. I mean, he just yells, and you don't understand the situation here. You need to tell the president. You need to tell that woman, I think an oblique reference to the then Secretary of State, all right, Condoleezza Rice. They don't understand this. I got it. This pressure, the freedom agenda is all wrong, and so on. Turns out we were right, he was wrong. All right? He was speeding down a cul-de-sac. All right? These Arab autocracies were truly dead enders. All right? And so the Arab awakening is a necessary passage, a difficult one that is unresolved, and one, frankly, that in the short term may have made things a lot worse in a lot of countries. But that, the Gaddafis, the Husseins, the Assads, the Mubaraks of the world, they weren't survivable. They were disappearing species, and we needed this transition sooner or later.
And in the midst of all these events and the fighting in Iraq, the aftermath, the surge, the breakdown, the fighting that's going on in Afghanistan, in the midst of all this, we're capturing people, we're gathering intelligence. We end up with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and others. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's a figure of a number of these people I have personal sentiments about because Danny Pearl was a good friend of mine and the mastermind.
And we believe KSM actually personally did
killed,
the execution.
Beheaded Danny Pearl. And so I was very happy when these guys were being vacuumed up. And I didn't particularly, on a personal level, I have to confess, the idea of them suffering in terrible ways didn't personally bother me that much. Maybe that's wrong. But in the end, it becomes a big issue, the way that we interrogate these individuals and whether it worked. You have argued that, in fact, the enhanced interrogation techniques, as they're officially called, torture in the common lexicon, but you probably would want to keep those separate. But in the end, did they work?
Yeah, they did. They did. They allowed us to collect information that we judged with some confidence was not otherwise available. Let me cut to how I reconcile this as an American, as somebody who believes in a divine being and so on. Good, honest people can say, I don't want my country doing this. I get that. That's an honorable position. Frankly, it comes out of shared values. All right? I don't want you doing this. And it didn't work anyway. Whoa, slow down. That second half is not speculative. That's not based on personal belief. The second half has got to be evidentiary. And our evidence is, no, it did work. So the statement you got to make is, I don't want you doing it. That's very honorable. And I'll live with the consequences.
Of not doing it, yeah,
Right.
of what might come from it. Did people die as a result of the enhanced interrogation techniques?
So there was one individual, two actually, who died in CIA custody. One died shortly after he was transferred to us by American Special Operations Forces. No evidence that anything we did contributed to that. It just happened while he was in our custody. The other one was an individual who died at a facility in Afghanistan very early in the conflict. And here, and I'm going to sound, I do have a Catholic education, so I'm going to sound a bit like a Jesuit making distinctions here, all right? One of the reasons we created the program I talk about in the book, which is the Enhanced Interrogation Program, is that agency folks so hosed up the early battlefield captures in Afghanistan.
What do you mean by hosed up?
I mean, they did not have clear guidance. They did not act within the guidance that they did have, and they did things that no one should support.
Brutality. They hosed
excesses.
Whipped them with hoses.
So
sort
the
of thing.
specific case for this one individual was that he was left on a concrete floor as nighttime temperatures dropped, and he died of hypothermia. The young officer who was in charge of the site at the time was ill prepared for the task. That's not his fault. That's the agency's fault. And it was because of that melee that the agency kind of said, all right, we got to build a structured program. No more county option out here in the field. And it was the structured program that I talk about in the book, and frankly, which I defend in the way we've just talked about. But we all freely admit that very early on in the battlefield captures, there were things done that we should not have done.
President Obama is running for president. He runs partly on the notion that all of that went too far, and that he's going to change that. He does issue that order as soon as he becomes president. But he also, and Attorney General Holder, then begin to discuss going back and looking back at some of these questions. Your view on much of that was that certainly the part that the specific inquiry into CIA, the conduct of CIA officers, that was problematic. But why exactly?
Sure. So I'll try to be very efficient because that's a big question, an important one. When President Obama called me in early January of 2009, President-elect Obama called me and gave me that Marlon Brando speech from On the Waterfront, and Ain't Your Night Kid, all right? He's going to make changes. He's going to bring in Leon Panetta. He's very complimentary, thanked me for my work. And then he said quite clearly, Doug, and General, there are a lot of people who want me to look backward. Now, I don't want to do that. And frankly, with your going, it makes it easier for me to hold my ground and just say we're going forward. And I said, God bless you, Mr. President-elect. That's the right decision, and I'm happy to move on to facilitate that. And I do put this on Attorney General Holder far more than the White House. Attorney General Holder then resurrects investigations of CIA officers that were conducted by career DOJ prosecutors in Northern Virginia who had declined prosecution, reopens the investigations without reading the declinations that his department had created several years before. So CIA officers who went through this life-changing cycle of going before grand juries get thrown back into this cycle again and go before grand juries. On just an ethical basis, I think it was very unfair to the officers. More importantly, perhaps, on an operational basis. Let me tell you how this works, Doug. CIA covert actions are always on the edge. They always take place in a gray area, gray ethically, gray legally, gray operationally. They're always out there on the outer edges of executive prerogative. So when I go to a CIA officer and say, we're going to go do something, he gets to ask me 3 or 4 questions. Number one, to me, boss, is this a good idea or not? No, I think it's good. Is the president authorizing it? Yeah, he is. What's the attorney general say? He says we're cool. Congress, did you tell the gang 8? At least the congressional, we told Congress. At that point, that officer thinks he has a social contract with the American nation, not with the current administration. And that social contract was broken when a follow-on administration then turned back onto the covert actions of its predecessors and held these people at great legal risk. That is entirely destructive of what it is you've got an agency for. Now, there may be people here, I know there are people in America who aren't very enthused about what CIA is sometimes called upon to do. But every president since the beginning of the agency has called on the agency to do covert action. So as this is happening, Leon Panetta, my successor, does exactly the right thing. He goes down to the Counterterrorism Center. This is where these people live, and holds a town meeting. One participant said it was like a pep rally in the Fuhrer bunker. All right, it was a very dark time, and Leon says all the right things to kind of buck up their spirit. And finally, one officer says, "Mr. Director, I got one question. Can you tell me that this is not going to happen to me in 4 years for doing the things I am now doing on behalf of this president?" And Leon answered quite correctly, because of the new precedent. I can't guarantee that, but this will not happen to you under this president, which is a really big deal.
Because of those clearances that had been put in place, ultimately the decision is made. Even though there were some, there were some pretty ugly things that are talked about in the Senate report, and I think the grand jury heard about. But in the end, the conclusion was made: these folks were operating under the umbrella of these legal opinions that have been put in place, and so they can't be prosecuted.
All of our national security structure was hardwired in 1947. All right? We are hardwired to defend you and everyone else here against malevolent state power. And the great discovery of 9/11 was, that's not our problem. All right? We've got these sub-state actors. So we've got a structure, Doug, designed to go this way against nation states, and the threats are coming this way. All the arguments we've been having with ourselves in the last 15 years have been around taking a structure designed to go here and make it go here. You're at war with Al-Qaeda, Hayden. Okay, I got it, boss. Close with and destroy the enemy. We've done that in every war. What's it look like this way? Targeted killings from unmanned aerial vehicles outside of internationally recognized theaters of conflict. All right? We're at war with them. Well, we were allowed to take enemy combatants off the battlefield. We can capture them. We've done that in every war. What's that look like here? Looks at that little naval base on the southeastern tip of Cuba. All right? We should learn about the enemy. We should intercept their communications. You know, Bletchley Park, Enigma, you all saw the movie, right? All right? What's it look like over here? Oh, that stuff Edward Snowden told you about. Do you see the issue? We're trying to take a structure designed to go here and make it go here. And we're arguing with ourselves, quite legitimately, as to what it is we're comfortable with in this new environment. We need not demonize either side of that debate.
Michael Hayden, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
The book is Playing to the Edge: American Intelligence in the Age of Terror. If you'd like to join our conversations about national security, politics, the presidency, any of the central issues in American life today, go to the Miller Center Facebook page, visit millercenter.org, follow us on Twitter, my handle is @DouglasBlackmon, or keep watching us on your local PBS affiliate. More than 250 stations are now broadcasting American Forum every week. We appreciate them all and all of you for engaging in the discourse of our nation. We need everybody in these trying days. Thank you. I'm Doug Blackmon. See you next week.